Hi, my name is Marc Garcia, and this is a visual representation of what my band life has been like. My struggles, triumphs, and memories. So in other words, it's a draw my life, or draw my band life, I should say. Band has had a huge impact on my life, whether it be getting the whole family watching the band concerts, taking the time to practice at home, or packing for the amazing band trips. Band affected the choices I made in courses at school, the friends I made, and the appreciation of music I obtained. I'm truly happy I chose to stay in band. Meeting my trumpet. Alright, middle school band. This is a story of how I met the trumpet. It all started back in grade 6 at Henry G. Izat Middle School. All kids were actually required to take both band and art in grade 6, and in grade 7 they had to choose between the two, depending on which they preferred. I don't know how kids in Acadia or Leach chose their instruments, but at my middle school, a music store that was most likely Long and McQuaid, I can't quite remember, came into our band room. They laid out all of the instruments we could choose from, and we got to go around and test as many as we liked. The store workers cleaned the mouthpieces after each student. At the end of it, we went to our band teacher and told him our favorite 3. He went home and figured out the instrumentation of the band that he wanted and told us what instrument we should rent for the rest of the year the next day. At the end of this session, the 3 instruments that really spoke to me were the trombone, the flute, and, of course, the trumpet. I really liked the trombone because it seemed fun to play with, since it had a big slide and all. And for the flute, I thought that it sounded really mysterious, like the music used for the entrance of a samurai in an Asian movie with bad English subtitles. To be honest, at the time, the trumpet was just the 3rd instrument I had time to try out. In my mind, it was a smaller trombone that was less fun. In the end, there were way too many trombones and flutes, and I was plopped in the trumpet section. I'm happy about the decision, though, because I ended up loving my loud and in-your-face instrument. Grade 10. This was probably the most life-changing year in terms of the choices I had to make. A positive early memory that I had, one of the earliest moments as an FRC bandsman that I can remember, was the first band class. It was when Miss Ferguson was going around the class choosing random kids and guessing their instruments. She got almost all of them, and I was surprised when she guessed that mine was trumpet. This was a memory that really stuck out to me because I felt that my new band teacher was someone very experienced, to the point that she could tell our instruments based on a look. At the beginning of the year, I had befriended a group of fellow trumpet players from Acadia. These guys were funny and a great group to be around, and were my first band friends. Later in the school year, I found a different group of friends that I related to a little more. People such as Curtis, Brian, Nolan, Corwin, Joseph, and Demeter. These guys are the best group of boys that I could have ever asked for in my high school career, and we learned a lot together. Anything from why you shouldn't play Christmas songs in October in front of Sobeys, or how some roommates really don't appreciate being woken up with a bucket of ice. A more depressing memory is about the start of my high school life. I'm one of the very few kids from HGI who transferred to FRC after grade 9 and the only student who stayed in band. I literally did not have any friends, and classes were boring without anybody to talk to. Even my fun classes, like band and choir, had ceased to be enjoyable. This was a point in my life in which sitting in a cafeteria at lunch by myself was unbearable, and I actually ate in the bathroom stalls a couple of times. It was gross, but I could handle it for a few minutes since I ate fast. Don't worry, I washed my hands before and after eating. I found myself day after day dreading going back to school, a place where I felt both alone and at the same time judged for everything that I do. I'm very happy to have found one wonderful and particularly loud individual who was a great friend to me, and still is to this day. Alyssa Chan helped me out a lot in breaking out of my shell. as well as another girl who was in vocal jazz with me at the time. These two ladies were introduced to me through a mutual friend of mine back in HGI. Alyssa introduced me to all of her friends, eating lunch in the band room, with the beloved microwave in the corner, and the wonders of senior jazz music. Most importantly, she was an amazing friend and made me feel like I belonged. I didn't even have to talk at all, since Alyssa did most of that in our conversations. All I had to do was listen. This was the year that I learned to make sure that none of my friends felt alone. I always tried to be friendly to everyone, and did my best to have as much fun as I could, just like Alyssa. I was very sad to see my grade 12 buddies leave me at the end of the year, but I knew our friendship would only continue to grow from then on. Plus, I had my new friends in my grade to goof around with. We still had so much of high school left. Grade 11. Grade 11 was a year of stagnation for me. I was taking a lot of advanced classes as well as extracurricular music activities like band, jazz band, choir, and vocal jazz. I still loved music, as you can see from all the music courses I was taking. It's just that concert band kind of lost its appeal to me in the midst of my busy schedule. Also, I wasn't good enough for wind ensemble, so I didn't get to play awesome music like they did. At this point in my band life, I realized that I probably didn't even have time to be invited to wind, even though I really wished I were in it. Unfortunately, the trumpet section was already filled with trumpet beasts and had no room for me. I found that there were only two things that could really get me excited about band again. One of those things was intermediate jazz band. I actually almost quit jazz band, along with vocal jazz, that year because my parents were wondering if my schedule was too much for me to handle. I insisted on continuing, and they let me, on the condition that I would have to keep my marks the same as usual. If they ever lowered, I would be in danger of having to quit once again. I worked hard to keep my marks high, and despite the devastating disappointment that was my AP Physics mark, I managed to stick through it. I learned how to better organize my time after school so that I could work efficiently, despite having to spend time working on my extracurricular activities. The other thing that kept me excited about band was the trips. Ah yes, the memorable band trips where the music was great, the rooms were obnoxiously loud, and the bus rides were cramped and rowdy. I enjoyed every single one of them, except for the grade 10 trip, maybe, because we went over to the rather bland province of Saskatchewan, though I will give our hard-working band teachers props for making it as fun as possible anyway. This year I got to experience a very special band trip, the Toronto Nationals trip. This trip was definitely my favorite trip in my 3 years of high school. This was the year where all my friends and I got to go on a 7-day outing to a bustling city of tall buildings. If that didn't sound exciting enough, we were the largest band program in Canada, performing at the national level. Each and every day was jam-packed with fun activities and memories that come once in a lifetime. It was also on this trip that my favorite performance occurred. The intermediate jazz band performance was the only time in that whole year in which I felt happy with my trumpet playing and proud of the ensemble I was in. Sure, I was happy to be in symphonic band, but I always felt like I was being overshadowed by the grade 12s at the time. It was only when I was with the kids in my grade that I felt that I made a difference. It was a place where everyone was on an even playing field in terms of experience, and in which the only thing holding anybody back was dedication. By the time we were in nationals, everyone in the band was dedicated thanks to the guidance of good old Mr. Fraser. He led us through our Discord and used music as a way to bring us all together. The time I really felt this was at the end of a great jazz band performance, our great jazz band performance at Nationals, with Eric Larson heavily carrying the team. The only time I was really tired on that trip was the bus ride home. There are a lot of people who will disagree with me, but the bus rides are usually one of my favorite parts of band trips. It's a chance to bond with my friends and get to know them, even if we risk getting to know each other a little too well. As someone who lost a bunch of good friends over a year of being in a different high school, I hold my friends very dear to me. The only downside that I found was the inability for one to be comfortable while sleeping on the bus. My friends and I have collectively concluded that it is impossible. Oh, and did I mention that we got to ride a pirate ship? Yeah, we had a dance party and a feast on that boat. That was fun. Anyway, overall, this year lacked motivation for me musically, but still had a bunch of my favorite memories of FRC band thanks to the band trips. Grade 12. And here we are. Senior year. This year was filled with a ton of ups and downs, very similar to my freshman year. This was the year in which my family was hit with a series of illnesses. In late October, my 1.5-year-old little brother was diagnosed with cancer after his daycare reported an odd bump on the side of his torso. He was in constant pain and was in the ICU for 2 straight weeks, waiting for his tumor to be removed and then afterwards recovering from it. If that wasn't enough, my dad got paranoid about a mole that had been recently growing on his leg. It turned out that he had a type of cancer as well, melanoma, a skin cancer. My dad had surgery to remove it as well. In addition, a couple of weeks after my little brother was diagnosed with the cancer, I was shocked to learn that I had an autoimmune disease called lupus. More specifically, I had something called systemic lupus erythematosus. Erythematosus. Yeah, I think I said that right. My own immune system was attacking my healthy cells, and the symptoms ranged from random tiredness to my fingers turning white and numb when it was too cold outside. Or anywhere, for that matter. I needed multiple medications, and our health insurance couldn't cover all of the needs of the whole family anymore. My dad also had to stop going to work for a month so his leg could recover, and at the same time, my mom was at home all the time to take care of my brother. Nobody was working in my household that month. Needless to say, we were in a financial crisis, and my family and I just didn't see how we could fit band trips into our budget this year. Thanks to the support of Mrs. Ferguson, we got to apply for a grant from the school. They helped us pay for this year's nationals trip, and my parents managed to make the jazz trip happen for us too. I'm thankful for all of the blessings that had been given to my family, and thankful that I got to go on the final band trips with my high school friends. Now, on to a happier side of this year. 2016 was amazing all around. The music was fantastic, and I felt that I began to grow as a musician again. My trumpet buddy, Nolan, had been welcomed into the wind ensemble, and I had my eyes open to the fact that this was my final year in band, and that I have to be engaged in every class so I won't regret it once I graduated. I believe I did that in the most part this year. I was engaged and was really into the music, especially in senior jazz band. Speaking of senior jazz, this year's music was my dream come true. Ever since grade 10, I have been waiting for the day in which I got to play the best jazz music that a high school student could ever want to play. Pieces such as Hey Burner, Dream of the Return, and Sing 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 were a few of my favorite pieces to play. Senior jazz band was the most fun I've ever had playing jazz.